You ever go silent on a woman, thinking it'll make her miss you? You stop texting. You stop calling. You disappear hoping the silence will echo in her mind, that it'll make her realize what she lost and come running back. But instead, she doesn't flinch. She doesn't reach out. She just moves on, like you were never there. And you're left wondering, wait, wasn't this supposed to work? Wasn't she supposed to feel my absence? Here's the hard truth most men never hear. Silence only works when there was something powerful to miss. Presence before absence. Depth before distance. In this video, I'm breaking down 6 brutal reasons why your silence doesn't hit her the way you thought it would. And more importantly, how to shift from trying to be missed to becoming a man no one forgets. Not by chasing, not by ghosting, but by leading. With presence, with power, with purpose. Let me break something to you that most men miss. If she's not emotionally invested in you, she won't feel your absence. See, most guys think, well, we spent time together, she must care, right? But here's the truth. Attachment isn't built on time. It's built on emotional impact. You can spend weeks, even months with a woman, but if there was no depth, no spark that reached her core, your silence doesn't feel like loss. It just feels like quiet. Think about it. When someone you barely know stops texting, do you ache? Of course not. It's the emotional bond that makes absence hurt. And silence. Silence doesn't create that bond. It only exposes whether it was ever there in the first place. So if she's unbothered by your distance, it might not be that she's cold or playing games, it might just mean she was never really in it. That's why chasing with silence won't work. If the connection wasn't real, the silence won't echo. Here's something men don't want to admit. You're not the first guy who's gone silent on her, and you won't be the last. In today's dating world, women deal with ghosting, flakiness, and disappearing acts all the time. It's normal now. It's not shocking. It's expected. So when you decide to go silent thinking it's a power move, she doesn't panic, she doesn't chase, she just shrugs because she's seen this script before. The truth is, unless you stood out, unless your presence had real weight, your absence is just another empty space. And that's what stings most for men realizing they were forgettable, not unforgettable. See, silence doesn't make you mysterious if she's already emotionally conditioned to handle guys who disappear. It just confirms her expectations. Want to be the one who actually affects her. Don't rely on silence. Be different. Be real. Be someone who shows up fully, consistently, with depth. Because in a world full of men who ghost, the rarest kind of power is presence. Here's where most guys get it completely wrong. They think their silence will make her question her worth, that pulling away will make her feel insecure, needy, desperate to get their attention again. But a high-value woman. She doesn't operate like that. She's not sitting there refreshing her messages. She's not measuring her value by your response time. She's not built to beg for breadcrumbs of attention. Because she already knows her worth. She's built her confidence from within, not from validation, not from male approval, and definitely not from someone who disappears to feel powerful. And here's the kicker. If you try to test her by going silent, you don't look strong. You look replaceable. A woman who values herself will never chase uncertainty. She won't shrink herself to win your energy. If a man wants her, she expects him to show up with clarity, not games. With consistency, not confusion. So if you thought silence would make her crave you, but all it did was create distance, it's not because she didn't care. It's because she cared more about herself. Silence only works if you gave her something to miss. Let's be honest, most men underestimate this. They think just disappearing makes them mysterious, powerful, unforgettable. But here's the truth. If your presence didn't create real emotion, your absence creates nothing. If all you ever did was send dry good morning texts, talk about nothing meaningful, never made her feel deeply seen or understood, then silence doesn't stir up longing. It just confirms the emotional void. She doesn't miss you because she never felt you. The men whose silence leaves a mark are the ones who showed up with depth, who created experiences, who left fingerprints on her mind and soul. You want to disappear and have her feel it? Then you better have shown up in a way that made her life better, not just filled time. Because silence isn't powerful on its own. It's only powerful when it follows impact. Let's get one thing clear. Silence without self-work isn't strength. It's just hiding. So many men go quiet hoping it'll spark desire, curiosity, regret. But then weeks pass, and nothing changes. Not in her, not in you. Because you didn't grow. You just disappeared. And disappearing without evolving, that's not power. That's passivity. If your silence isn't paired with transformation, mental, emotional, physical, then all she feels is space. Not the rising tension of missing you, but the fading memory of someone who stayed the same. Real attraction happens when the man who left comes back unrecognizable, wiser, stronger, clearer in purpose. That's when the silence hits different. Because now, the gap didn't just grow quiet, it grew wider. So ask yourself, while she's wondering where you went, can she also sense that you've risen? Because silence by itself is just stillness. But silence used with intention, that's where real power begins. Here's something most men overlook. Women don't respond to absence. They respond to energy. You thought going quiet would spark her curiosity, make her chase, make her wonder where you went. But what actually happens? She mirrors it. If you go cold, she goes colder. If you pull back, she pulls further. Not because she's trying to punish you, but because she's reading the room. Women are emotionally intuitive. If a man disengages, they don't double down. They protect themselves. They match what's being shown. That's the mistake so many men make, thinking silence is strategy. But women don't chase confusion. They respond to clarity. You want her to engage, show up with intention, not games. If you withdraw just to provoke a reaction, you've already lost your power. Because now you're not leading with strength, you're reacting from fear. And here's the truth. If your silence makes her pull back, it's not because she stopped caring. It's because she assumed you did. There's a difference between silence that's forgotten and silence that echoes. See the most magnetic men, they don't just go quiet. They leave behind a resonance. Even when they're not in the room, you can feel their presence. Why? Because they lived with purpose. They stood on values. They carried themselves with discipline, clarity, and direction. It's not about being loud. It's about leaving an impression that doesn't need noise. That's what true masculine energy does, it lingers. Not because he chased, but because he impacted. Ask yourself this. When you walk away, does your absence carry weight? Can she feel the man you were not through your texts, not through your silence, but through the standard you embodied while you were present? That's the kind of man who doesn't have to chase attention. Because his presence, even in absence, is unforgettable. And that is real power. Here's the part that stings the most sometimes. Your silence doesn't make her miss you. It makes her feel relief. Because the truth is, people don't crave what caused them confusion, stress, or emotional exhaustion. They crave peace. They return to what made them feel seen, safe, and alive. So if your presence was full of pressure, inconsistency, or emotional instability, your silence doesn't feel like loss. It feels like clarity, like space to breathe. And that's a wake-up call. Silence isn't always power. Sometimes it's just confirmation. Confirmation that her nervous system feels better without the roller coaster. Confirmation that you weren't aligned with what she truly needed. So if you're sitting there thinking, why isn't she reaching out? Why isn't she missing me? Ask a better question. What did your presence actually bring to her life? Because women don't miss the absence of noise, they miss the presence of value, of grounding, of growth. Silence only works when your presence once made her feel something worth returning to. Let's clear something up. Detachment isn't about not caring. It's about not being ruled by what you feel. Most men confuse emotional distance with strength. They shut down. They act cold. They think silence equals power. But real detachment, it's different. It's when you can love deeply, but still walk away with clarity, still lead with integrity, still choose your values over your urges. That's the kind of man who doesn't need to chase. Because he's not looking for validation, he's aligned with purpose. She respects that. Not the silence that comes from pain, but the stillness that comes from self-control. The man who can feel, but not fold. Who can care, but still choose his path even when it hurts. That's what real masculine mastery looks like. Because in the end, the man who leads with purpose, not pain, is the one she remembers long after the silence. Silence isn't the strategy. You are. It's not about disappearing to trigger her emotions. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to be loud, to be felt. If she doesn't feel your absence, it means she never felt your presence. So instead of waiting for silence to do the work, do your work. Build your purpose. Sharpen your mind. Lead your life like it matters. Because at the end of the day, it's not about making her regret losing you. It's about making you impossible to forget. Not because you vanished, but because you evolved. And when a man evolves in silence, he doesn't come back to chase. He comes back to lead. More to video, think your silence will make her miss you. Think again. In this video, we break down why your silence means nothing, unless you do this first, and reveal what actually creates impact, presence, and lasting attraction. If you've gone quiet, hoping she'll chase, this is the truth you need to hear, because your silence means nothing. Unless you do this first, and once you understand why, everything changes. Subscribe to Stoic Growth Guide to get early access to videos that help you rise with purpose, not desperation. To Stoic Growth, your silence means nothing, masculine presence, dating mindset, emotional discipline.